Hey guys, and welcome to Taylor Tech. So when I first set up my NAS server, one of the things that was my kind of overarching goal for the project was to have a central repository for documents and media which I could access from any device in the house and anyone could access from any device in the house. And while I was able to mostly achieve that goal just by setting up a FreeNAS box, I wasn't really happy with the ability to access media. I felt like it was a little more difficult than it needed to be, especially on mobile devices, to get to that media. So I decided it was time for me to look into a media server, with my primary goal being to make it easy on not just myself, but everyone in the house to have access to all of our media off of that NAS server. So there are a lot of different media servers out there that you can choose from when you're looking to add a media server to your home environment. There's Kodi, there's Plex, there's NB. The thing for me though, and my driver was overall, how do I make this easier on everybody? I don't want people to have to be technical to be able to get access to the server. I want to be able to give them, here's the app you download, here's the username and password, and you're done. That's it. Nothing else to set up. And really the only service out of the ones that I looked through that really met that criteria, that was super simple and basically took care of everything for you, was Plex. Now I know there are people out there who will argue, oh, you can do all this stuff with these other services, and there's apps, users have created apps, they're all open source, they don't cost money like Plex does. But you got to remember, again, I'm targeting non-technical people here. I'm talking about my wife, my kids. I want them to have access to the media too, and I don't want to sit there and have them bring me a device every 5 minutes. I'm not a help desk. I'm here to enjoy the content on that server the same as them. I don't want to be here servicing the technical issues that they're having. So with that in mind, Plex became my primary choice. So there were some cool things about Plex that I really liked. One was not only can any device have access to it on their local network, if you configure it, you can also allow people to have access to the Plex server when they're remote. So you don't have to necessarily have cloud storage or anything like that. It'll serve directly from your server over your internet connection to remote devices. Another thing that I thought was really great about it is that it automatically would import all your media, put metadata on it, bring in metadata from the internet, and categorize things for you without affecting the file structure of the stuff that you have on your media server. It was all just within its own internal database, which is great. And I wanted to make sure that the media was easily recognizable to everybody and easy to search and sort through, because we're getting to the point where we have a lot of media in the house. So one of the biggest drawbacks to Plex, and something that a lot of people will complain about, is that Plex, if you're going to use it to its full potential, costs money. Plex has a service they call a Plex Pass that you can purchase that is a subscription service. It's I think it's $4 a month, $40 a year, or $120 for a lifetime at the time of this video anyway. That adds a lot of features. It enables the mobile app. It enables storage on cloud services like Google Drive or Amazon S3 or other cloud storage services. It also allows you to download your music locally or remotely from your Plex device for offline listening. While that all sounds great, a lot of people would argue, yeah, you can do some of those things with NB for free or with Kodi for free. Well, I know some of those features are available on some of these other servers for free because they're open source and they don't charge anything for the use of the service. I actually find what Plex does to be really nice because, again, it takes care of a lot of the stuff that you need to know for you. If you're on a computer, you just go to plex.tv, log into your account, and it knows where your server is. You don't have to enter any information. You don't have to download a third-party app on a computer. On a mobile device, you download a third-party app, you log in, and it finds your server for you. Telling people, here's the IP address you need to put in. Here's the web. Here's my DNS name that I've configured. You can go there. It's this port, not this port. None of this explanation that you have to do to people who, if you're in an IT environment, you're end users. You don't want to have to have them dig through the technical details. Plex hides all that from the users, I guess would be the best way to put it. It makes it very easy for people to just consume media, which is what people want to do with their media. They just want to consume it. They don't want to have to go through the hassle of you know, managing the server that's providing it. I will say though, for all that, Plex was not the easiest thing to set up, at least the way that I was doing it. Plex is probably one of the most flexible platforms as a server platform. You can run it from basically any operating system out there: FreeBSD, Linux, OS X, Windows, you know, desktop or server versions. It really doesn't care. There's going to be a server, a Plex server available for it. What I chose to do, I chose to run it on a Linux server, a virtual machine, and then store my media on my NAS. So I had remote storage on a Linux server on a virtual machine. That added layers of complexity that actually made the setup process pretty difficult. But if you're just going to be installing it on a Windows box, it's pretty simple. Since I know a lot of the people who watch my content and follow my content are home labbers themselves, we're going to go through the virtual machine setup on a Linux server with a remote NAS device that we're connecting to actually store the media. So what we're going to do, we're going to hop over the demo. I'll go through the setup process, show you all the things that you'll need to keep in mind as you're going through the setup for yourself, and then we'll come back and close it out. All right, guys, so for this demo, we're going to be installing Plex on a Linux virtual machine using our FreeNAS server as the storage device. So let's go ahead and hop into our hypervisor, and I've already got Linux installed to kind of save some time. It's just a basic Ubuntu 17.04 install. The only option that I chose during the setup was to add an OpenSSH server, which is necessary for a later portion of this demo. So let's go ahead and connect to that. Actually, just kidding. We're not going to connect there. We're going to connect this away on PuTTY. So load, let's change the IP address to, where's standby? My IP address has gone missing. There it is. So let's go back to PuTTY. We're going to connect. All right, there we go. So we're in the basic Ubuntu server. Let's go ahead and start. So the first thing you need to do is you'll want to download and install the Plex server, and also set up the repository to and set up the repository so that it will automatically install updates when you do apt-get update. So let's start with downloading. So cd temp. So let me get the download link here real quick. Yeah, that guy. Copy link address. So we're doing this through PuTTY so that we can copy and paste into the Linux terminal, because otherwise some of this stuff is kind of a pain in the butt to type out a bunch. So we want to wget, and there it is. And we're going to go ahead and download that. So this is from the plextv.downloads. We're selecting Linux, and we chose Ubuntu 64-bit, and we're just downloading that into the temp directory. Now that it's downloaded, we can install it, which I don't remember the command off the top of my head. Again, guys, I'm sorry, I'm not a Linux guy. It is dpackage, right? So sudo dpackage-i, and then it's the file name, right? Yeah, the file name. And then, all right. Fuck. Sudo password is that. And that'll go ahead and do the install. So again, not a lot of options to pick at this point. It's just basic install of Plex Media Server. Okay. And it's done. Wow, that was fast. Okay, so at this point, Plex Media Server should be installed. We can double check it by going to our IP address, which was 10.0.10.122 : I think it's 324.000.0/web, and that should redirect us to Plex. All right, now, perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. That means the Plex Media Server installed correctly. The next thing we want to do is enable repository updating. So there's two commands you have to run. Copy and done. Second one. Done. All right. So now we've enabled repository updating with these two commands. Again, I'm copy pasting from Plex. I don't understand entirely what they all are doing. I know that one is adding it's downloading basically the repo, or setting the path to the repo in a file for us in our sources, apt sources. And the second one, I believe, is downloading a key and adding it to the key registry, so that, you know, it can authenticate that files are actually from Plex and not from someone else that's impersonating Plex. So that's everything on the Plex side, Plex Media side, for setting up and installing the Plex server. So the server's installed. Now we need to get our FreeNAS server to connect to it. So on the FreeNAS server, let's see. Come on. Bring that tab over. Freaking Vivaldi is fighting me today. All right, so I've set up a NFS share at mount Davis Home /media. So that's the one that we're actually going to mount. So what we want, the next thing we'll need to do is actually install the NFS common. So sudo git believe that was the command. So what this will do is it'll install the service that allows us to connect to NFS shares. So NFS is the common share type used on Unix type platforms, if it's FreeBSD or Linux or something similar. So we'll give that a second to install. And then once that's installed, we'll make our directory that we're going to mount it to, and we'll do the actual mount. So this is where we're actually going to want to mount it. The command to mount is mount-t NFS, and then the IP or DNS name for your Plex server. Mine is, or for your FreeNAS server. My FreeNAS server is at freenas.davishome.info, and then the actual mount location. It's going to be the same as what is listed on the FreeNAS server in brackets. So mount / and it is case sensitive, so make sure that you're not being lazy. And we want to mount it to /Plex Media. All right, and it's a sudo command. All right, so now our media is actually mounted to that location, but it's mounted for now. It's not permanently mounted. That mount will not come back if the server reboots. To do that, we actually need to set up a script to run said command right here for us. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Okay, so what we need to do to we basically want a script that's going to run on startup for us. So what we're going to do is under etc init d you'll see that there are a bunch of scripts. These are all scripts that will run on startup. This is something that was difficult for me because a lot of the information that was out there was for older versions of Linux, which use a different system for running commands at startup. Apparently, newer versions of Ubuntu use something called systemd, which is completely different. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a file here. So sudo nano, we'll call it mounts.sh, and start it with our bench, and oops, we'll add our text. Come on, 0, exit 0. All right, so this is our basic little script that we're creating, and that's in that init etc initd folder. We've got our bang at the beginning, same sudo. We don't need the sudo actually, since it's going to run as root. You don't need the sudo, it's going to run as root. And then we need to tell it to exit. So we're going to tell it, save file name. Okay, so ls. So our file is there, but you'll notice it is not green like everything else. It is actually not an executable file yet. We need to add the executable property to it. So sudo chmod -x mounts.sh. And now, well, should be, that did not work. Maybe there's no dash. Nope. Hold on. 7. Hey, there it is. I thought, oh, it's capital X. It's capital X. See, I'm not used to such case sensitivity. I should have run this. This should have been a capital X here. I'm like, dude, Linux, so weird to me. All right, so let's see. Next, now we've made our script executable. We need to actually go add a service for it. So in cd etc systemd system. So these are the services, and what you can see, we've got once files, we've got service files, and basically these once are different groups, I guess, different system events. So we've got multi-user, which is user login. We've got shutdown. We've got sysinit for when the system starts. You know, network online, graphical, just basically all sorts of different things that you could set it for. So we need to create a service file here and tell it that, you know, which event it needs to be associated with. So we're going to do another sudo nano, and the file, we'll call it mounts.service. Okay. And then we add, basically there are 3 sections we need to add. We need to add a unit section, a service section, and an install section. So unit description equals FreeNAS connection for Plex, and then service, the type is one shot, which means it's just going to be run once, and the xstart equals bin sh, and then let's see, init d sh, and so now we're finally adding the install for it. Wanted by equals multi-user target. Wanted by multi-user target. Okay, so let's save, and then we need to enable the service. So systems control enable mounts.service. Okay, and it assumes that you'll need sudo auth to do that. So it asks even if you forget to sudo it. If you sudo it, it won't give you those prompts. So now our mount service should be associated with multi-user targets once. So if you run mount, you'll see everything that you're connected to. You can see we're connected to the FreeNAS server there. So if we could do a sudo reboot, it's going to tell me it lost connection because it did. I'll just connect this way real quick. What we're doing, we're validating that our addition of that script worked and that it will reconnect to the FreeNAS server on reboot. You just want to make sure you do this just in case for some reason you bounce the Plex server, have a power outage, whatever, that the connection is going to come back. And you don't have to log in and manually remount that thing every single time. Mount. Ooh, it's not there. Can't open mounts.sh. Oh, whoops. // d sudo. Okay. So let's see.
A few moments later.
Motherfucker, now it's there. Okay, so I fucking hate it sometimes. So now on the 87th try, there it is. I didn't actually change anything. I went and compared files back and forth between my production server and this demo server, and there was not a single damn character difference. And like on the 5th reboot, finally it took, I guess. I don't know. That's weird. Now it is actually mounting correctly freenas.davishome.info. Now, we're finally ready to set up the Plex server. Now, if you look through the instructions on Plex's website, they state to go to the Plex server from localhost port 32400/web to configure it for the first time. We're on a Linux server, though, that has no front end, no GUI, no ability to connect a browser to it. So all we actually have to do is we have to telnet into it. Telnet. We have to. So we have to. Bleh, wow. That no. So what we actually have to do is we have to open an SSH connection. We're going to load this and put in the demo server's IP address once I turn my numpad back on. Where we have a proxy. Is it a proxy? SSH. So we have to set up an SSH tunnel where we're going to take the local, this machine's, my desktop computer's port 8888 and redirect it to localhost 32400 on the machine that we're connecting to over SSH. This is SSH port forwarding. You can do this with PuTTY. When you're setting up your session, your SSH section, you'll get this option under SSH and tunnels. So when you do that and you click open, you don't even have to log in. Just once it's open, boom, you're there. You can go to your browser. Don't need you anymore. And go to localhost. There, I've already got it typed in. 8888/web, and it'll redirect it. Refused to connect. Well, let's try logging in. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay, so you do have to log in. I lied a lot. So once you're logged in, it'll work. You can actually connect as if you were connecting from localhost, and you can go through the initial setup. This is the only way to connect to the Plex server when it's on a remote server that has no front end for you to launch a browser from, no GUI for you to launch a browser from. So we're connected, got it. We can, at this point, log in. There's that Plex pass I was talking about earlier. Go away. So call it Plex demo. Next, allow me to access my media outside my home. I'll turn that off for this one. Well, we'll leave it on. We'll go through that. We'll go through that part. That's pretty easy. Boop, 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 boop. So here you can start adding libraries. So let's say I want to add a, we'll call it a photo library. We'll call it photos. Next, browse for media. So you should see Plex media, and then boom, there's all the stuff that's on the NAS. We'll do Alaska. Add. Okay. Add library. Boom. We'll just add one library for now. Okay, it's telling us where we can get our apps. Then we're in our Plex server, and it's going to go ahead and start auto-discovering media. Of course, there's only one photo there. So sad, so lonely. Once you get that, your libraries added, you will want to go ahead and make sure that you're signed in. I'm already signed in. Oops. You will want to make sure you're signed in. You can see it automatically signed me in because I'm actually logged into Plex on another thing. So you can see here's my home Plex server next to the demo server. So some other things you'll want to do under settings. If you want to have remote access to this server, you'll want to come down here and make sure you get this all set up under show advanced. Assuming that you have a pfSense or similar type server set up, you'll want to make sure that you manually specify a port, and that is the port that you specify on your pfSense box. Under NAT, you'll want to make sure that you set up a rule for port forwarding under NAT to forward everything from 3240 to your internal Plex server. So obviously my internal Plex server is a little bit different than the demo server. And if just label it, give it a friendly name. Once you do that, Plex should be able to more easily pick up the, we'll be able to pick up the server and allow you to access it remotely. I was able to test that with my phone, just disconnected from my Wi-Fi and was able to still connect to my Plex server. So that's really cool that's built in. So this SSH connection is only really important for that initial setup so that you can connect as localhost. Once you go through that initial setup and you get your Plex account added to the Plex server, you can access it remotely and change all server settings remotely. You don't need to do that again. So there are a lot of other settings that we can go through on Plex. I'm not going to dive too deeply into them because I'm still learning a few of them myself as I'm adding more media to it. I will say you will want to optimize your libraries if you are adding a ton of new media. So there's an option to optimize the library database, and that's something that will significantly improve performance. I have noticed, let's see, on my main Plex server right now, I've got it set to, I think it's 8 virtual cores. Yeah, so 8 virtual cores and 2 gigs of memory. Plex is not really a memory hog from what I've seen. It only uses about 1.5 gigs. It doesn't really use that much memory. And I've looked at it during playback, and it's not that much. For the, I've assigned it half of my machine's cores, and it's Sometimes we'll use those a little bit heavily, especially if you have multiple people streaming. I've only ever had one stream going from it at a time because, you know, we tend to watch stuff together as a family. Everyone's not off on their own. My kids are all really little. So we tend not to be the hand them a device and let them run off parents. So all that to say, if you're doing this in a virtualized environment like this, you will want to keep an eye on those resources and make sure that you're adjusting them as needed, so that you give your Plex server enough to handle the load you're throwing at it. The more people that are doing streams, the more types of media that are being streamed, obviously the heavier the load is going to be on the server. You know, it's generally going to be much more of a CPU intensive thing than a memory or network intensive thing. It'll be a little bit network intensive because outgoing media streams can be high bandwidth, but it shouldn't be too bad, especially on a local area network. All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and cut back over and wrap things up. All right, guys, so like I said, there were some complexities in there. Nothing too terrible, and honestly, if you're more familiar with Linux than I am, it probably would have seemed a lot easier for me, being someone who is more of a Windows native and less of a Linux native. You know, it was as much of a Linux learning process as it was a Plex learning process. So, yeah, I've really enjoyed having Plex. So it's much nicer than just digging through folders. I don't have to worry about weird names on files. I don't have to worry about if something is hidden in a subfolder under another subfolder. It's just all there. It's organized for me. I can search and sort and filter in all sorts of different ways to find the media that I'm interested in watching at that point. And I can not just watch it in my house, I can watch it remotely. You know, so for me, Plex has been great. I really enjoy it. And I think that while some people may not agree with having a software that you're paying for when there are free versions available, I will say sometimes it is actually really nice to have the paid software that is regularly updated, that gets bug fixes in a timely manner, and that has a rich and full feature set. You know, I personally don't mind paying for software when it actually provides on its promises. You know, to me, there's nothing wrong with that. People deserve to be rewarded for their hard work. The Plex team does a good job. I think it's appropriate to reward them for that by paying for their product. You know, and I honestly feel like I get a higher quality of service out of it because it is so well integrated and easy to set up, and easy for users to set up to use their devices with my Plex server. So anyway, I could go on on my philosophy on software and services and when you use paid ones versus when you use free ones, but that's not this video. Free ones, but that's not this video. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and throw a like on it. Also, if you have questions or comments for me, you can leave them in the comment section down below. If you'd like to see more content like this again in the future, hit that subscribe button. If you'd like to support my channel, you can do so by clicking on the Amazon affiliate link in the description section. I really appreciate when y'all do that. That helps fund this channel and allows me to do more projects that to bring you more great content. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.